It is over.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and how are you? We are the Insiders, and we are here with an interview today. We haven't done some interviews in a while, so we figured we'd get back to doing that. Always love to get people on the show. And tonight, we are honored to have, from everything pro wrestling and the wrestling community, we are here with Conrad. Conrad, how are you, man? And welcome to our show. Really appreciate you having you aboard.
It finally feels good to be part of the Insiders. So definitely, man, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be on this show. I've actually listened to several of your episodes. You guys are fun to talk to and listen to. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, we really appreciate you coming aboard, and thanks for taking some time with us tonight. I know it's a little bit later here on the East Coast, so always appreciate you coming on. So let me get started with you. So I know you've got your own show going, you've got your own YouTube channel, and at the end of it all, we'll have obviously you tell everybody how they can find you out there in social media land. And so how did you get started personally in wrestling? I know it's always a fun thing to talk about with other podcasters and stuff like that. And when did you get your start with your interest in pro wrestling?
That is probably one of the toughest parts to piece together for me because I don't remember when I started watching wrestling. Okay. My brain probably wasn't developed enough at the time. I can tell you some of my earliest memories that I always tell this story and people probably think it's weird, but I remember going to preschool and I brought action figures. I had all the wrestling action figures back then. My mom would like collect them. We would cut out the like cardboard pieces. You remember the Hasbro ones from back in the day. Yep. And we would cut them out, put the pieces together. And I remember bringing Demolition to preschool. And I was like, oh, they're so cool because they got the face paint and everything. And they got the tongue sticking out and they're red. I brought like Smash, Crush, and Axe. Had them up there. People were touching them. I'm like, yo, don't bend his arms like that. That's not how they're supposed to go. What are you doing? And I never thought about till I got older. I said, I brought dudes that were dressed like gimps for show and tell to like, and I was like, what was I thinking doing this? Like my future should probably mortify, like, what did this kid bring into school? And I thought it was something harmless, you know? But awesome. One of my favorite toys from like the bin, JYD, the little thumb wrestler ones that they used to have. I don't know if you guys remember that. They'd have like the hole in the back. You could thumb wrestle with them. Yep. One of my favorite toys that I always used to mess around with. And last but not least, in my kindergarten graduation picture, you could take a picture with your favorite thing. And I'm from Buffalo, so shout out to the Buffalo Bills. I got a AFC champions like hoodie on when I'm 5 years old, and I brought my wrestling buddy Hulk Hogan with the title on, and that is in my kindergarten graduation picture.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Demolition. Love Demolition. Big Demolition fan when I was a kid. That's awesome. That's fantastic. The fact that you even remember that amazes me because, you know, being an older dude, I'm lucky if I remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, but that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you were a fan very early on there. Well, that's awesome, dude. How about any like live events? See, when I go back like farther, I go back to when my dad used to take me to local gyms, and I've told this story before. You'll go into these, you know, smaller gyms, and I was just amazed at some of the people that were actually there that I was able to see in person at these places. So, what are some of like any live events that you went to when you were, you know, maybe of course a lot, you know, older than that, but maybe your first like live event that you ever saw, or anything that left a really standing impression on you?
Oh my goodness. I can remember my first live event. I think if I Google it, I can remember. I remember one specific thing. I went with my father. I remember we went to like an original pancake house, and he let me buy pancakes for dinner, which was weird, but I thought it was cool back then. And I remember being afraid of the Undertaker when I was on my dad's shoulders. I remember him coming out with the gray gloves, and he wrestled the British Bulldog, and I believe it was in Niagara Falls when I went to that show. It was around like 1992, and I remember the graphics with like Sean Mooney with the blue and red backgrounds, kind of. I don't know if you guys remember that from 92. They'd be like, the World Wrestling Federation is coming live to your hometown. You will get superstars like boom, 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 boom. So, yeah, it was pretty wild, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, anytime you could see classic Undertaker, that would have been amazing. I didn't get to see him until a little bit later on in his career. So, seeing that live would have been awesome. That's great. That's a great memory. I love stuff like that. You know, it's because, you know, they talk about you're going with your dad and stuff like that, and where you get it from, and the people that, you know, kind of, you know, passed it on to you, and you saw it because of that, and you kind of gained an interest in that as well. So that's awesome, man. So what had you become a creator? Again, always great for us to talk about that too, because we've just started this thing not that long ago. So always great to hear how other people got their start in, you know, wanting to be a creator, wanting to, you know, have their own shows and stuff like that, and talk all things wrestling. How did you get started with that?
So this goes back to probably around 2007 or 8. I can't remember the year. I didn't start creating then, but I had this passion that I kind of wanted to do it after hearing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Sala Monster. Definitely a big inspiration for someone like me to hear him go on and kind of just, you know, he felt like a regular fan. And me and him, we have a lot of viewpoints that line up. And I was just like, yo, this dude's really good at this. And I wish I'd have the opportunity to do something like radio. And during this time, I was just getting into college and everything else. It was like my first or second year. And I'm like, man, this is going to be really tough to do with school. And I ended up saying like, oh, when I finish school, I'll do it. And I kept doing little videos on the side. Like I did a lot of like wrestling video game reviews. Now this is before I had they had Elgatos and all that stuff. I have a camera pointed at a television screen, not even the HD screens or plasmas, like a big old TV. I've got like camcorder footage of us playing like No Mercy, me and my brother. We're just kind of reviewing it, talking about it. And it's pretty wild, like how many views some of that stuff got back then. Like I have a video that has like over 100,000 on one of my other names. Wow. And man, I couldn't believe it that a lot of people were like taking to it to talk about like SmackDown versus Raw video games or whatever it was at the time. And so it's always been interesting. And then once I graduated from with my master's, I guess we'll say, I really wanted to get back into it. So slowly I started recording on YouTube again. And, you know, you feel uncomfortable at first. Like if you go back and like watch some of your first things you did, oh Lord, it feels so weird, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's just, it gives you this weird feeling. I'm like, oh, but slowly things started to connect. Like my brother would watch it. He watches a lot of YouTube and he would say, my slogan is everything pro wrestling is a show by the fans for the fans. And my brother said, keep saying that just like you said it tonight and say it over and over again. I'm like, it's kind of cheesy, don't you think? And he was like, it is, but it'll get stuck in people's heads. Now, anytime someone's on my show or they know the phrase, they say it. And they laugh. My whole family knows the phrase at this point. I was like, that was a really smart idea that he gave me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? Everybody, you got to come up with something. Like you said, there's so many of us out there. And you know, to get yourself to be something a little bit different from everybody, that's key. And it's great marketing. So yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great that he gave you that advice. What's your opinion on AEW's women's thing, and what do you think is going on there? Because I can't figure it out. I mean, is this coming from the top? Is this coming? You know, is this Tony Khan not wanting or not believing in the women, not wanting the women out in the spotlight at all? What's your take on this?
Oh, this is rough. I do AEW Dynamite reviews, and I definitely tried to avoid this. I did get into the women's wrestling thing a little bit yesterday, and I kind of went on a mini rant. But I haven't mentioned anything about the heel stuff. First, big shout out to my boy Foul and the Queen of Any. We all used to be partners on Brainbuster Radio. So very cool. I am very familiar with both of them. So big shout out to them. As far as I know, several women involved with the AEW heels thing. And let me say this. It seems like it's something positive first about this. I don't feel comfortable talking about something that's for women in the respect of like, it's not for me. It sounds like it's for them. And I know that it's hard for people in this industry to get across what they want to, especially if you are a female. Like some people just don't take them as serious. They don't get opportunities. They're not treated the same. And I 100% get that. And I've heard stories from behind the scenes, and we could talk about that after if you guys want, once it's off air. But the idea that they were going to do something for women, it sounded like it was for content creators is how I took it. The $50 I feel was to deter people who were going to come in and troll or who aren't serious about their craft. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think you're going to be provided with opportunities, a chance to speak to Brandy, probably get interviews with talent, learn how to be a professional and how to conduct yourself, and maybe get some free merch out of it, some giveaways, whatever it may be. And I'm going off of a lot of assumptions saying that stuff. That's what it sounded like it was to me. And I know a lot of people read it and they thought, oh, I thought this was for fans. She presented it, and they should have said it outright if they were going to do it that way. But to me, I took it as this is for content creators, people like such as you guys, WrestleJoy, whoever, Sean Ross Sapp, anybody who's like a creator and you want to get involved in this. That was what it felt like it was for the heels thing. And as far as the women's division as a whole goes, they've got some talent on there, but one thing I can't get behind that I saw some people arguing was AEW's women should be in the main events. They should be spotlighted more. Time out. This is where I gotta reverse it on fans sometimes, because the fans are not always like 100% in the right. And I know I'm probably about to get some hate for this, but hear me out for a second. Look at what some of those people are writing. You say the women's division is the worst division. You're competing against WWE on Wednesday nights. And I don't really care about the ratings or anything else, me personally, but obviously the companies do. Why would you put something that you say is the worst and give them more time? As a business person, that doesn't make sense to me. Am I crazy, Joe and Jeff? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, because I think that they do have some talent. Now, obviously, if a match doesn't warrant being in the main event, it doesn't warrant being in the main event, whether it's a men's match or a women's match, period. But when it comes to the time, I think where I have a frustration with it is, I mean, you take last night, for example, and I think, you know, that whole thing with Britt Baker and Big Swole, that whole encounter lasted 4 minutes. So it's like, okay, you know, can we get a little more of them on screen? You know, and if they don't feel as confident in the female talent that they have, then, you know, kind of work with them and give them some opportunities to maybe cut some promos or do different things, just so the fans are a little more engaged.
I can agree with that. Like I said, there's talent there. Like, I love Sheeta, and I've called some of these people out from the beginning. I think Nyla Rose is great. I like Rio. A lot of people don't like Rio. Penelope Ford. To me, I think the real issue is, and this is an assumption again, so I could be wrong, so please don't have Brandy or Kenny Omega or whoever cussed me out for this. But I feel like there's too many different visions. Yeah. Hear me out. Tony Khan has said he wanted women's tag team titles. We get the Deadly Draw tournament. There's a cup. I get it. Maybe you're testing the waters. Cool. You've also heard things from Brandy about, yes, we want our women competitors to be taken serious. This is where some of the people come in. They say, well, you guys said this, and you and Cody said that they were going to be treated equally, and they're not being treated equally compared to the guys, and they're talking about screen time now. Get it. Kenny Omega seems like he's running things, and he is not as accepting to the criticism like other people have said AEW would be. And I think all these visions are starting to clash. We saw it with the Nightmare Collective. We saw it with a bunch of different things. And I'm like, something's not working here. Yeah. So I think they really need to sit down. And honestly, I would look at starting afresh, starting anew. And I'm not saying completely get rid of everything you've done. Look at what you have and say, how can we build this and make this work?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that could lead back to, I mean, at the very beginning of this whole thing, I was impressed with the whole Dark Order thing. I love the vignettes. I thought they were really, really good. And it kind of sucked me in thinking, like, where is this headed? And then, you know, we kind of got into it a little bit, and it was like, okay, and then of course they led to the whole Exalted One thing, and then they brought Brody Lee in with all the fanfare and everything that they brought him in with, and okay, that was cool, but it just, like you just said, it always seems like it's, I don't know if it's, there's different things coming from different people, and it just doesn't seem like it has a direction. And I mean, now it seems like maybe they're getting back into it a little bit, but yeah, I think it just could have been so much better. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just too many people out there with just different visions of where they should be going. And, people are always asking about Omega and him and Hangman Page. It's almost, my goodness, like they've been teasing a heel turn of some kind with those two since it started almost. And, nothing really coming to that either. So, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe there is just too many cooks, as the saying goes.
It could be that. It could be that people aren't used to long-term storytelling too.
Oh, yeah.
Another weird idea that I put in people's heads too is I hear a lot of younger wrestling fans out there, and I've really wanted to sit down and kind of get some people in on this for like a podcast idea. Has Vince McMahon programmed wrestling fans into thinking something's a certain way? Think about this. You've only dealt with WWE for the last 20 years, and a lot of these fans are younger now, and they've only seen things the WWE way. I have went back and watched some of the classics, like I'm sure you guys have, and I know wrestling can be done differently.
Yep.
Now, you have to do it correctly and make sure you don't make the mistakes of people in the past. But Vince McMahon's way of doing things is sometimes how people see it with short-term storytelling, like, okay, and next month he's going to turn on him. Like we were thinking at Revolution, okay, Hangman Page or Kenny Omega's got a turn. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. It doesn't have to happen here. They could drag this out for a year if they wanted to. People want long-term storytelling. I think it makes the payoff that much better, but you kind of have to do it right. And the Brody Lee thing, I think what hurt him was there no crowd. Him and Matt Hardy have got amazing pops. I feel. Yeah. I was supposed to be at that show.
Oh, no way.
Everything for the Rochester show.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah, that hurt my soul to see that because Matt Hardy's one of my favorites too. And I was just like, dog, I could have been at this show and seen both of these guys debut. And I am so mad. Because think, Brody Lee may have had a different reaction. Fans may have really gotten behind him and they're like, yo, we got to run with this in the main event this week.
That's true.
It could have changed the outlook versus, well, this is where we think you would have been anyway, Yeah. And that's what I feel like they're going through right now with the Twitter and nobody being out there. You don't know how to really engage your fans or what they're thinking.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I love the point about the long-term storytelling. Again, it's a topic we bring up a lot on our show as well. And, trying to, and like you said, there's a younger audience out there now. And I don't know. I think all in all, and this isn't even with wrestling, but I think it's just we've just kind of grown into maybe I want to say like a social media driven kind of impatient world. People want answers and they want them now. And it's not, they don't want things to be carried out. They don't want storylines to be carried out. They want an answer right away. And that's not always the best thing because, you do that and you start providing people with things like that, then you're going to get, the stuff's going to get old really quickly. I mean, Jeff and I bring up Bray Wyatt because we're both big fans of the Fiend character. And I mean, it seems to me like with the things he's doing, I mean, you can definitely tell that this is in it for the long haul. We talked to people that are friends of Bray. We talked to Kyle Scarborough, who kind of helped him create the character, and other people along the way. And they're both saying, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen any of what's to come. And yet people are like, oh, well, when is this going to happen? When is that going to happen? The whole Sasha Bailey thing, what's going on? Why are they waiting for this for so long? When are they going to fight already? But yeah, I agree 100%. And Jeff, I know Jeff always talks about long-term storytelling as well. My co-host was in wrestling, so he was a wrestler. And I know he believes in long-term storytelling. Jeff, I know he talks about it all the time.
All the time. It's like if people don't hear it during our podcast or anything that we do, then they just start saying it in the chats because they know it's coming at some point. But yeah, I just think that it's this instant gratification society at this point where we want to see the big payoff now. And I attribute that to things like Netflix, where we can get a whole season of a show in one night, so I can sit there and watch the whole season of it to see what happens. So a lot of times fans bring that same thing to wrestling now, and it really damages the ability to tell stories in a way that actually hit home like they did in, decades previous. So, um, I just think that, we're kind of handcuffing some of these companies when it comes to what we expect, because we want to pay off now when it doesn't make sense for that story to get to that point now.
Yeah, I think it hurts too. A lot of armchair quarterbacking too. There's factors that people don't think of all the time when it comes to what happens. So you could sit there and you could book your WWE universe or whatever if you play the video games and book all the matches you want. But what happens when there's an injury? Or what happens if so-and-so can't make it tonight because their kid's sick? There's different things that play into a lot of these stories. And you can make easy adjustments, especially if you're doing long-term storytelling, to make sense of a story. I don't know. Like you said, the fans are impatient. Maybe because I'm older, I definitely agree with you on all of this. But it's different. Because I get it. Some of these kids say they've never seen a show that takes this long. I think that's the problem with 3-hour Raws. That's why the numbers are going down. If you told me a movie is 3 hours, I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I could do this tonight. I don't know. But since we're all in wrestling podcasting, it's kind of like, okay, I guess I got to sit here and watch this. But there's been times I can't even review Raw anymore because I fall asleep during the middle of the show, or I'm done with it. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's an hour and a half more. I don't think I'm going to make it. Like, I'm just going crazy and I'll find anything else to like take my mind off of it.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we've all had that feeling. Speaking of Raw, why don't we go back to Monday? Because I'll be honest with you, man, I got done with that show and my mind was boggled. I had no idea what we watched, and I'm thinking, okay, I afterwards I kind of thought about it for a little bit, and I'm like, all right, they're trying something different here with this underground thing, and of course the stories that were floating around all day were, that it was a completely discombobulated show. It was all out of sorts. There was no direction to it, and Vince was upset because there was no direction to it. And Shane is coming back, but you're not sure what Shane's involved in. And then there's going to be a faction, and they announced it, but then there was really no faction. You just saw somebody bombing what looked to be not to be a generator, and they said it was a generator. So it just seemed like it was all over the place. And I had to kind of take it all in after it was over and think, what is going on? I mean, I could see a little bit maybe of an upside in something new like the Underground. I mean, you can use it in storylines. Brock Lesnar was a fighter. If Brock wants to come back and go in there or something like that, maybe. But I mean, what did you think of Raw? Because I'd love your opinion on it, because it seemed like it really struck people in many, many different ways. So what was your opinion on the show?
I think from watching Randy Orton in the Big Show for like, I don't even know how many times it's been, to watching this Raw Underground, it really made me appreciate the effort that was put in on this week's show. Here's the thing. 3 hours. Can you keep me hooked is the main question. They did a good job, I thought, with the flickering of the lights. I knew from the beginning it's a work. I watched Beware of Dog when the lights really went out, people. Yes, okay. They're messing with something. Maybe this is the new faction who's going to debut. Cool. I'm looking at this like, all right, I'm with this. And they had some good matches happen. Cool. Yeah. Then they kept teasing that Raw Underground. I like it. It was something different. The only complaint I have about it is the camera cuts. Kevin Dunn has to stop doing that. It's ridiculous. Or the shaky cam. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the cameramen do like they're shaking the camera. They're trying to hide the fact that some of these things aren't connecting. And it's time to tell some of the people you may get peppered a little bit. Like, let it happen. Let the camera be stationary and just let things happen naturally as they're going on with this. I think this is a good vehicle, and I would use this as we saw at the end of Raw with Lashley. What are they called? The Hurt Business?
Yes.
Benjamin and MVP. I want Lashley Lesnar in the Underground, or whatever they want to call that match. I want to see Lashley versus Lesnar. If that's the way we're going to get the match, cool. But I think that's where they need to go with this. That's personally for me. But I liked it. They tried something new. I can't be mad at it. Would I get sick of it if I saw it every single week? Perhaps. But I want to keep seeing like cool things like this just randomly pop up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of actually hoping at that point when they got to it and they started advertising it before the 10 o'clock hour. I'm like, okay, is this going to, because I know you had mentioned, the 3 hour Raw and everything like that. And I've been petitioning for the longest time, go back to 2 hours because that third hour to me seems like a giant waste of time. Go back to 9 to 11. You could probably still have everything you wanted to get done in there, get done and not have filler. So, and then when I saw the 10 o'clock hour coming, I'm like, okay, maybe they're going to do this for an hour and they're not going to, and the wrestling part of it's over. But then it almost became like promos, and I'm okay with it if that's, what maybe something like that is coming. Maybe they're going to want to expand it a little bit. Maybe even if they want to do it for a half hour and do it for, from 10:30 to 11. I'm good with that because, like you said, it's something new. And I know Jeff kind of felt the same way about it.
Yeah, I always thought that they're going to do 3-hour Raws. Why not make that first hour like a pre-show kind of content, and maybe you stick one extra match on there?
Yeah.
I've never understood it, and I can explain something, too, to a lot of viewers who may not understand this. My background's in business, by the way, so I don't want people to think I'm just talking out the side of my neck when I say these things. Vince McMahon had no choice but to take that 3-hour deal towards the end because of how much money was on the table. That if he kept turning that down, they would have been able to vote him out as a CEO, and he couldn't have that. It's great that he has all this money to sign people, but it's because of the stockholders that he has that money. So he has to do what's best for the WWE. Think of WWE as a person, as a corporation. He has to do what's best for WWE, and that's his goal. And if you're seeing, man, you can make an extra $100,000 52 weeks a year. Well, you got to take the money. So I completely get it. I do think it's hurting the brand. And I wish that other people would realize that, and possibly USA, but it's one of their highest drawing shows on their network.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think of the ratings thing? Because that's another thing everybody's always bringing up. Well, the ratings are bad. The ratings are down. The ratings are down. Week after week after week. I mean, we saw an extremely cool scene with The Fiend and Alexa Bliss on SmackDown. And I know they really didn't advertise it. They didn't really talk much about it, leading up to it or anything like that. Now they are this week. So, I mean, do you think this overall is just the world we're in? I mean, I don't think anything's really up over anything else. I mean, TV, you've got nothing. There's no shows running now. I mean, everything got shut down. So, you're seeing stuff that maybe was filmed the end of last year coming on, nothing really new, anything anywhere. So, do you think it's just kind of a misleading statistic or a misleading number, and it really doesn't mean much because of the world we're living in?
Yes, I think the Nielsen ratings are not as strong as they were a few years ago. Remember, when they're saying 10 million people were watching both Raw and Nitro back in the day, there's people who are flipping back and forth. So it's not 10 million fully, but they'll say that number to make it sound good. And trust me, there were a lot more wrestling fans back then too, who were watching, can talk about it and everything else. But as far as the ratings today, I personally have taken the stance of I don't care about the ratings, because to me, what works best is who has the long-term better show. Nitro won for, 83 weeks, right?
Yep.
I honestly believe that for a long period of time, WWF Raw was the better show during those 83 weeks. It was never reflected like that in the numbers, but I said long-term, they're going to be fine. They're not doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything crazy. The NWO was cool. Nitro had to maintain the momentum, but I think long-term Raw was doing everything right. And I think it's the same thing with NXT and AEW. Just stick to your plan. Focus on what you want to do. Don't counter program. Don't try and do anything like, well, they've got this, so we got to come back with this. I mean, if they're doing a big show, okay, let's make a big card tonight too and try to rival them. But you don't need to do things where it's like, okay, if Keith Lee's comes out during this quarter hour, let's flip it and then do this so we win that quarter hour to see if we can get people to stick to it. Write an overall good show, and people are going to continue watching. I think AEW's been genius with the hashtag. That has kept me from turning to NXT like I used to. I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, I want to win some free stuff. What's the hashtag? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh crap, I never turned the channel to NXT tonight. It worked.
Yeah, there you go. Some genius marketing strategy. Awesome. I'm going to throw a couple of quick wrestler names at you, and you just let me know what you think about them, because they're wrestlers. I mean, me and Jeff have talked about on the show quite a bit, and just kind of get your take on them real quickly. Karrion Kross.
I think Karrion Kross is a great performer. I see this guy as someone who could be in Hollywood one day, truthfully speaking. Like, I really think this guy has the knack for like theater, Hollywood, just from his speaking ability, what he can do. But in pro wrestling, this dude could be a stud, and I hope that Vince McMahon and these guys look at him and see main eventer instantly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the honestly, one of the coolest entrances I think I've ever seen. I absolutely love his entrance, and he impresses me. I love the personality. I love the gimmick, and yeah, I agree with you. I think he can go far. How about Aleister Black in WWE?
Real quick before I go to Aleister, one thing that scares me though about Karrion Kross is the Sable effect. I hope that he doesn't become Mark Marrow to Sable, where they become infatuated with Scarlett. That they're like, "Who? Oh, you're taking a power bomb from her tonight on the floor." No. So
great point. Yeah,
it's just a scary thing. Aleister Black, I'm a big fan of Tommy End. I thought this dude was great when I think he was on that first NXT UK show. I don't know if I'm right on that. He was on one of them though, and he performed. I was like, this dude is great. And I went out and seeked some of his indie matches from YouTube and stuff. And I was like, this dude's really good. I can say that he really hasn't had too many bad matches. Worst thing I've seen him do is that stuff with Lars Sullivan, not even on him. I think that Aleister Black is someone else who I was hoping that him and Undertaker had a match at Survivor Series, 30 years of The Undertaker, and it could have been like a buried alive match. Aleister hits the black mask, knocks Taker into the grave, and he like retires Undertaker. I thought that would have been a great way to like put him over, have him show respect to the Undertaker, and you could do like one last ride for the dead man or whatever. But I think he's a great character.
Yeah, absolutely. How about Orange Cassidy, man? I mean, obviously we're getting it looks to me like Jericho's really trying to get this guy over. What do you think of Orange Cassidy?
I think he is over. A lot of people, you either love the guy or hate the guy. And at first, I think a lot of people didn't get the hands in the pockets thing. And I'm like, look, dude, this dude's so good that he makes it look easy. I'm telling you. And Orange Cassidy is amazing. I love the character. I never saw so many people dressed up like him for like Halloween and stuff all over Twitter. Even Tony Khan dressed up like him. So I think the dude is like the epitome of cool, and I really like what they're doing with him.
Awesome. Jeff, I will let you go. You have any further questions for Conrad?
Okay, so I like to ask a lot of content creators this question, but what advice would you give to a person that is interested in getting started in content creation, and in terms of people that have been in it, what advice would you give them about remaining fresh and relevant, I guess?
For new people, do it. Whether it be a podcast, whatever you want to do, pictures, do it. There's a lot of great people doing graphics, but someone's always looking for a person to do graphics. I'd love to partner with people who are new doing graphics and like, hey, what do you think about this? And if I like it, I'm like, hey, let's work together for a little bit. I'll put your name out there and do things. Never be afraid to work with other people. Go out there and just do it if you're brand new. Throw whatever you got into it, and you may get some hate. You may get some snide comments. Forget those people. They're haters. Come and talk to the positive people in the wrestling community. Talk to the insiders. Talk to Foul. Talk to people like myself. And I'm sure people are willing to help you out, give you some encouraging feedback that's actually going to help you versus people with negativity. So don't be afraid of that stuff. And as far as people who've been doing this for a long time or a while, I would say don't be afraid to try something new. As far as doing different things. Myself at this point, I feel a little stagnant in what I've been doing. For the past month, the only thing I've been putting out are Dynamite reviews, and pay-per-view reviews currently. But I'm working on a project that I think a lot of people will appreciate and hopefully they think is cool. I'm going to try something different, throw it out there, and hopefully it works. We'll see what people think of it. But just don't be afraid to try something new. Talk with other people, work with somebody else. Some people get the brains going. Like talking to you guys is giving me some ideas kind of sparking off the top of my head now. We mentioned some of the mutuals that we have. You talk to them in a private chat. Sometimes things just start sparking in your head. You're like, hey, we should work together on this type of project. We could work together on, like Foul did that great thing with TNA Wrestling, their first ever show. Some people probably never knew they started in 2002. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a good idea. So bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, that was it. I was just going to ask, you were probably about to ask this too, but just shout out your socials and where people can find your content.
Well, first and foremost, I don't ever do that without saying thank you to you guys for providing this. So I always tell people, no matter the show, go subscribe to them on Periscope, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Show love to the Insiders Wrestling Podcast. These guys are great. Just great people sometimes just to talk to, even if it's non-wrestling related things. Good people just deserve respect. So I'm going to give you guys that right now. Also, if you guys do want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at EPW Show. You guys can also check me out. We have 2 Facebook. So I have a official page. Just type in Everything Pro Wrestling. You'll see the logo. You guys can like the page. You'll get all the podcasts and some cool things like when merch and stuff is at a discounted price. Also, we have a Facebook group called the Everything Pro Wrestling Group. You guys can come in there, talk wrestling. We talk non-related wrestling things. I think we had discussions about what was the best donut the other day. Then we talk Monday Night Raw. We have threads, things like that. Come on in. Sometimes people get rowdy and there's arguments within there. You just ignore it sometimes and just, chalk it up as some people are jerks. But if you come in, have fun. That's the main thing that I care about with people. Instagram at EPW Show, Twitch EPW Show, YouTube, type in Everything Pro Wrestling. We stream things like Fire Pro. We review AEW Dynamite. You never know what's going to pop up on the channel. We do a lot of cool things, retro reviews. And like I said, we've got some cool things coming up soon. And hopefully we can work together on something on one of the shows, guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to plug my stuff.
No, anytime, man. And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We appreciate the, anytime we get to talk to someone who has done really well with this as you have. It's an honor for us to do that. I mean, because again, same thing we said to Foul and Queen of NE and stuff like that. It's great to get together and hear and get ideas, like you said, from other people and to work together. That's one thing I have to say is, you don't see enough of that. And I've talked to Foul about this too, is that, it's great when you can get people, kind of helping each other out here and not always trying to compete and always trying to, look, there's enough viewers out there. Oh my goodness. There's enough wrestling fans out there for everyone. And the fact that, you can help each other get better. That's a great point, man. That's a really great point. I totally agree. Listen, anytime you'd like to come back, we would love to have you back anytime, man. I had a blast talking with you, getting your opinions on some of these hot topics and things like that. Really, really glad that you were able to come on, and obviously really glad that Foul kind of introduced us as well. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we will see you out there. And yes, everybody, go and check out his channel, and follow him on Twitter and sub on YouTube, and give it a shot, because again, like I said, it's great to just see other people out there doing this kind of a thing, and knowing that there are choices out there for everybody to watch. So yeah, man, thank you so much for being on, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Joe and Jeff, thank you guys so much.
You got it, man. Anytime. Guys, that is it for tonight, and we will see you again very soon. This is Joe and Jeff and Conrad, and we will talk to you all again very soon. Take care, everybody.